I'm Jason Herman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Herman Wells. Whenever I was a kid, I thought I was going to be an engineer or an architect, something with numbers, and I got burnt out on numbers and I focused on words. I decided to get tracked that way, writing, reading things. I became an English major in college, and then in law school, that helped me there. What I do now is interpret contracts, which is not that far off from interpreting how people write things. I chose law from a pretty early age. My folks said, "You like to argue, you must want to be a lawyer." I've found now as being a lawyer, arguing is not necessarily what we do all day, but it's a good fit for me. My first real legal job was doing insurance coverage in a legal department at an insurance company. And I was writing reports on how those insurance policies worked. I was dealing with cases, I was in the courtroom sometimes. And it was something I really liked. It was something I was good at. And so rather than move on to a different job, doing something entirely different, I stayed with that topic. I moved from working in-house to going to private practice. I've always stayed focused on insurance, dealing with insurance issues. Whenever I was working in-house at an insurance company, I got to see the courtroom very little. I was mostly explaining to adjusters how their policies worked. And whenever I transitioned to private practice, it became actually advocating for a position instead, which I found to be a lot more rewarding. It's the same skill set, they're still explaining, but rather than explaining for the purpose of information, it was so we could get something done in a court setting. So explaining to a judge to win a hearing, or explaining to a jury to win a trial, or most of the time explaining to the other side so that we can reach a settlement. I do like my job. I like it a lot. I guess my peers, the folks I used to work with, and people I've met in the legal field call me and ask me questions, and I enjoy fielding those questions and drawing from what I've had as an experience with insurance. I think what I'm most passionate about is being prepared for those kind of questions. You know, when I get a new case in, I don't like to be surprised. I don't like there to be some new case in my field that came up that I don't know about. So I'm passionate about learning that, keeping abreast of changes in the law, changes that our legislature makes to the law that affects insurance. And so when someone calls me with a new case, I know what that case is about, usually within 2 minutes of talking to the person. When a client calls me, or when someone who might be a client calls me on the phone, what immediately happens is a conversation about what's going on, what problem they've encountered. And what I try to do right from the start is to help them understand what they're dealing with as just a starting point. And I receive calls every day from folks who maybe don't need to get into litigation, don't need an attorney, but I feel like it's part of my job is to explain what they're facing anyway. And of course, when we do sign up a client, it's an understanding of here's what, in an insurance context, here's what your policy does. Here's what you can expect it to cover. And here's how we're going to get there. And so when someone hires me, I feel like it's my primary job is to let my client understand the whole situation and put it into terms where they can understand it. And the reason for that is because at the end of the day, the client decides where their case goes. And my job is to get them the best result, but also to advise them as they go. And so when I give a client advice, I don't just say, take this settlement. I have to explain why. And they have to understand it so they can make a good decision, they can feel good about it.